we're going to jump ahead one more time. I promise this is going to make sense. But I actually have to introduce the topic. Well, I've already introduced it, but I want to talk about my time at the Spiritualist Church before we come back to Dr. Margolin. So, what if I told you that I actually ended up living in that house in Summerlin that I saw Dr. Margolin walking out of? I lived in Summerlin for a year. Yeah. Like I said, Summerlin is where the Spiritualist. So it wasn't actually where it was started. What I believe happened is that it kind of became a haven for other spiritualists. So, yeah, so many spiritualists came and kind of descended on this little place, Summerlin. And again, it's got a very, very interesting vibe. And I forgot how it came to my attention. I think I was honestly like driving by or walking by, but I saw the Spiritualist Church. And I thought to myself, well, why not? I'm going to go in. And I don't remember exactly when was like my first time going, but I do remember very quickly realizing that, oh wow, it's like, it's really packed. I could never get a seat past like one of the back rows, and like everyone was older for the most part. I was by far the youngest person, and the way it worked is there would be like a couple, I mean, like regular church, right? There'd be like a couple hymns, then there'd be like some kind of message, and then the part that I liked the most, the part that I was waiting for, came at the very end. And this is when one of the mediums would come to the front, which, by the way, the Spiritualist Church is essentially a church full of mediums, in a nutshell. I would look it up. You'd get a much better explanation and definition. But anyway, I'm here to talk about my own experiences, right? So at the end of every service, a medium would get up, and kind of like I described at the beginning of my experience with Patty Negri, this medium would kind of just scan the room, scan the sanctuary, if you will, which was a very small room, and just kind of give messages. And they'd always give like maybe 4 or 5. And I remember that they would always ask the person first. They always had to get permission from the person to give them that message or not. And I remember there were even a couple times when people said no, that they, didn't want, and there were many, 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 many different reasons for that. Anyway, that was always my favorite part. And I quickly realized that there was this blonde woman, we're just going to call her Tracy. And Tracy was by far one of the best. And I loved when she went up because her readings were so detailed, and she, again, the incredible detail that she went into, and you'd be so hard pressed to watch these interactions, watch the reactions of the people, and not leave with some form of belief, So I brought my roommate, I brought my friends, and I would even start attending the little sessions afterwards. So afterwards, they would kind of do these one-on-ones for people to like work on their mediumship, right? Spiritualist skills. And because, again, there was a curriculum and a methodology to it, people would like advance and people would earn certain certifications, etc. And then part of that, again, would be leading messages, etc. in the church. So not only did I find this kind of very fascinating, and if you haven't noticed, anything that I kind of involve myself with, I kind of just take it and run. For good or for better or for worse, right? Like anything that I devote my mind to, I jump all the way in. Ain't no sticking the toes in for me. Like I just, again, for better or worse. So I was very, very excited by all of this, and I actually like up until this point, I don't know again what's going to happen in the future, but up until this point in my life, I would say that, and you'll see for many reasons, my time in Summerlin was some of the most like dynamic, paranormal, what have you, spiritual times in my life. And oh, believe me, I am only getting started. So I attended the Spiritualist church, I want to say for like a year, and I have even gone to services up here in San Francisco, the Spiritualist church of San Francisco. But again, one thing that I remember being very impressed by, because again, I'm always going to do my research. I'm like, I'm not going to get into a cult, right? Actually, two things that come to mind. One was how the organization of it all. I would argue even more organized than the evangelical church that I went to. Again, the whole like curriculum and the whole like certification structure of it. One. Two, you would be surprised who you would see in the congregation and who I would see. So people from like other parts of my life in Santa Barbara, because it's all a very, very small, very tiny community. I would see at the Spiritualist church. I found that so interesting and so like, you know what I can say? Enchanting. That's what I can say about my my time and experiences at the Spiritualist church. So from that, I want to say pretty much from that first visit, and then like I said, I would start attending the sessions afterwards. They'd have lunch, etc., and they were just thrilled, in their own words, to have a young guy like me come and be interested. But from that first time, I could not wait for it to be my turn to get a message. I just knew, I hate that sounds, I don't know, conceited, whatever, but like, come on. Let me sound selfish, but I was there to get a message for myself. And like, I remember going and like sitting through the entire service, and then it being the end of the service, and then waiting, and they'd never come to me. And then she would come up and I'd be like, Tracy. No, she'd never come to me. Like, I don't know why I wanted, like, maybe it was like a year and a half total that I ended up in. Again, I didn't sit down and draw out the timeline. Maybe it's like a year and a half total, but I want to say maybe towards the end of this, because I want to say I waited like a good year, like 8-9 months before I finally got my message. And I will tell you about that in the next video.